line of products, but there was 3 things that we wanted to bring you today that we just launched at the Chicago Hair Show. We sold out worldwide immediately. Like, I was even in Europe, they completely sold out there, America, everywhere. We're all, as a company, obsessed with color-treated hair problem solving specifically, okay? Not just doing a little spin-off of another shampoo and calling it a color shampoo. Everything we do is very specifically for color-treated hair. We obsess over it, okay? So when you kind of buy into this as a salon, you're buying into a root cover-up, you're buying into a range that's going to really help your client's hair. And as we know, color-treated hair is huge now. Everybody has color-treated hair pretty much out there. So it is a massive, massive market. It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So these are our Color Wow cocktails. So these are the kind of next step after you kind of shampoo, condition your hair. They're a leave-in supplement. So this is looking at your color-treated hair and whether you have dry hair. We have a solution with our coconut cocktail, dry, parched, like terrible hair. And then we've got, for the internal breakage in hair, we've got the kale cocktail, and then we've got the carb cocktail, which is actually to refatten and replump up fine color-treated damaged hair as well. So 3 huge problems out there. Each of them is a solution, and they are leave-in supplements. So you shampoo, condition, you leave them in, they dry like water in the hair, so they're not heavy, they're not greasy. You can use other styling products after them. I can just tell you, from a hairdresser's point of view, the results are absolutely mind-blowing.
All right, the cocktails. Gail and I and Giles and our team sat down and said, what are the 3 major problems that women who color treat their hair, and that includes any type of color treatment. 1 was dryness, rough, dry hair that, has lost that natural, youthful shine that you had before you started color treating your hair. And we addressed that problem with what we call our coconut cocktail. So this addresses dry hair that's dull, that is rough. The appearance of your hair is dictated by what's on the surface of the hair, not what's inside the hair. That comes later when we get to the other cocktails. But the appearance of your hair is actually dictated by a very fine layer of what we call a lipid. And this lipid has a real special name, and it's just really been identified in the last 20 years. It's called 18-methyl-eicosanoic acid, and it's actually called 18-MEA for short. Now 18-MEA is actually, your body actually bonds it to the surface of every hair that comes out of your head, deep in the follicle. And that gives you lubricity, it gives you natural shine, it gives you smoothness, and that's why if you ever look at virgin hair, like on a baby, a 2-year-old, and you see the hair just flows, it doesn't tangle up, it flows over each other because it's got this natural, lubricating, shining lipid layer on the surface. And that lipid layer, as I said, is bonded to the hair. What happens when you subject hair now to high pH, pH of 10, which is a normal hair color pH, or highlighting pH, peroxide, ammonia, it strips away that lipid layer, and your hair becomes dry. It becomes rough. The cuticle starts to raise. Right? It becomes dull. It tangles easily. It's more susceptible to humidity. All these problems, and these are all surface problems. So what we tried to do here was say, yeah, other people are putting silicone on their hair. And we did frizzy serum, so we know about silicone, right? But we said, let's think out of the box. Let's think beyond just what everyone is doing. So I told Gail in the meeting, she asked me, investigate this, see what you could do. So I found 18-MEA. I found the source of it. It's a very rare amino acid. There's only one supplier of it in the whole world. And it's a patented material, and we have an exclusive to it. And what we did was we combined that 18-MEA, the actual fatty acid that's on the hair from nature, and we combined it with coconut oil. And we made this proprietary combination or blend. And we put, when that was put in this cocktail. And when those get on the hair, they actually bond to the surface of the hair. It's a temporary bond. It's not a permanent bond. And that's why as Giles said, you use it after every shampoo and condition. You put the cocktail on, and it restores that natural lipid layer. Next cocktail, next problem, as Giles said, was the fact that, and you might not realize this, your hair actually gets finer and finer as you process your hair, whether it be color treating, perming, straightening, whatever. All those chemical services that, again, use high pH, ammonia, hydrogen peroxide in most cases, your hair is losing mass. What does that mean? It's losing weight, it's losing volume. So if you were to take the diameter of your hair at the root and at the tip, after several processes, you'd notice that the hair is actually finer. By losing mass now, it loses its manageability. The ends just look frayed and they break apart. And this is because what's happening is the keratin proteins inside the hair are hydrolyzing under the conditions of a normal hair color. What that does is these long keratin proteins that are inside your hair, that make up 90% of your hair, are breaking down. And every time that hair gets wet, some of those broken down fragments of protein, keratin protein, leach out of the hair. And we did a test where I showed Gail, I'll just show you the demo with, I color treated hair, let it settle for a day, dip it in water, then squeegee it off, let it sit in the water for about 5 minutes, test the water, there's protein in the water. Take that swatch a week later, let it dry, a week later, dip it in the water, squeegee it off, test the water, there's protein in the water. So every time you wet that hair that's been chemically processed, you're losing protein, the hair's getting finer and finer. What else, what can we do? What can we do here that's different and then make our product out of the box kind of thinking? And I said, well, Gail, how do plants work? How do plants, build up the leaves, the stems, the roots? They have carbs, they have carbohydrates in them. Things like cellulose are in plants. Starches, that's what plants use to build up and bulk up the actual plants. And I said, if we could somehow take carbohydrates and bond them to the surface of the hair, we might be able to put enough mass in the hair to actually make the hair feel and look thicker and fuller. I use cellulose, starch, and oat bran. Those are my 3 sources of natural carbohydrates. All right? And what I did was create what we call our carb cocktail, C-A-R-B, carb cocktail. And what it is that these 3, if you look under a microscope at just like a cellulose, it actually creates these little microfibers. All right? So when you put the 3 carbohydrate sources that we have in our carb cocktail on the hair, you create an invisible, flexible, all right, 3-dimensional microfiber mesh on the surface of the hair. You don't see it, it's invisible, it doesn't stiffen the hair at all, but it gives you the look and it gives you the feel when a woman or even a man puts their fingers through the hair of thicker, fuller hair. And again, it doesn't use vinyl and acrylic type resins and polymers to do it. We were able to do it with what nature uses to bulk up things, carbohydrates. And like I said, the second benefit, because we started testing it on women with just fine hair. With just fine hair that was limp, and every day they had to wash it because it would get greasy. And we found out that they came back to us and said, you know what? I usually have to wash my hair every day because the oils just wick right down my hair. I'm going 2 or 3 days now after using the carb cocktail between shampoos because the carbs, which now that you look at it, it's obvious, but we weren't thinking along those lines, are actually absorbing some of that end-of-day greasiness that some women with fine hair experience. Third major problem women face, and it's probably the biggest besides the dryness, is breakage. And because every time you blow dry color processed hair, if you pull too hard, use too much heat, you have the possibility of breaking it off, especially down at the ends or from mid-shaft on. So that was the third problem we tried to address with what we call our kale cocktail. Now, breakage is due not only to the keratin proteins that I talked about before being hydrolyzed, but it has to do with the links that hold the keratin chains together. There's these disulfide, cysteine, sulfur bonds. That all means the same thing. That cross-link will make bridges between the keratin, and that's what's responsible for the strength and elasticity of your hair, all right? And the resilience of your hair. If without those cross-links, your hair would be like a rubber band. But with those cross-links, give it the strength that it has. Now, high pH, ammonia, hydrogen peroxide, cleave those sulfur bonds, as you may have heard from other companies, right? And that will take down the strength of the hair anywhere from 20-25% every time you color treat your hair. All right? By breaking those sulfur bonds. And there's no restoration of them in the color process. There's no restoration of those sulfur bonds. So I looked around and I said, let's think about sulfur itself. Let's find a natural source of sulfur that doesn't smell. Mineral sulfur smells like rotten eggs. You don't want to go near it. But if I could find a natural source, and I did, it's called blue sea kale, and it grows on the northern coast of France, on the beach, actually. It's a big blue sea kale. And if you look it up, you'll see it's grown, like I say, on the coast of northern France. It's rich in vitamins, and it's rich in amino acids and biopolymers, but it's also one of the richest sources of natural sulfur. And what I did was, I said, Gail, let's try this. Let's put this in our kale cocktail. So it's not the kind of kale you're thinking that's grown on fire. It's actually the sea kale. That's a very, it grows in the most worst environments, but it's got this great ability to have all this natural sulfur in it. So I put the blue sea kale in. All right, how do we test this? Let's send it to Textile Research Institute in Princeton, New Jersey, who specialize in testing hair fibers and hair products for all the major companies, L'Oreal, P&G, whatever. And let's let them do what they call a breakage test. And what they did was they took 20 swatches of hair, all right, and they bleached them out to damage them, all identical, all right. Then they took 10 of those swatches, and they have a combing machine, and they combed it 2,000 times. It just went round and round and round. And they measure, actually, or they count how many broken hairs they got. Then they took the kale cocktail on the other 10 swatches, and they put it on, let it dry, did the same exact test, and got 50% less breakage in just one application of the kale cocktail. So this fragile, bleached hair had 50% less breakage due to the fact that now what's happening, and this was our theory initially, was that sulfur is getting in the hair, and slowly, and as Giles said, there's a cumulative effect here. By using it after every shampoo and condition, you can actually re-strengthen your hair. All right? Chemically processed hair that has lost those vital sulfur bonds. So that's our kale cocktail.
And you absolutely, they're designed, you can use them together. Okay? You've got to, trust me, once I sometimes go into a salon and I explain what they all do, some owners are like, I have all three, for their own hair. But really, you only use two of them. Okay, and generally, it's normally you always use the kale first, and then that is either twinned with the carb or the coconut. That is generally the way it works. But you don't mix them. You actually layer them on the hair. So you'd always use like the kale first, because that's the one that's infusing into the hair, and then you would use like either the coconut or the carb afterwards. The way I do it as a hairdresser, and when I'm in the salon, I would just look at my customer's hair, and I'll establish what her problem is, and if she's got really damaged, like fried ends, the first thing I'll do is I'll just pull out the kale. I'm about to blow out your hair, I'll just take a little bit of the kale, just run it through those ends for you. The carb is the most kind of liquidy one, so that actually does have a little thing here that you kind of pour it out, but you literally, we did look into sprays and all the kind of thing, but we felt that the most kind of organic, the more cocktail kind of feeling was just simply, just to pour it out, you rub it in your hands, and that's how, when we were testing it, it's how we as hairdressers wanted to kind of use it. So that's the way we normally go. We always test with hairdressers first. So if you've got really frizzy, parched, big hair, I would say something like the coconut, you could use like a quarter. But if it's just less, but you've still got a bit of a difficult texture, I'd use less, like a dime-sized amount. And again, then when you're coming into the carb, you don't need to use a ton, but you can use like a bit, maybe like a quarter amount. You run it all through, and it's where the problem is in the hair as well. Some people, like, when they've got an ombre, have actually got a really good lipid layer, like here, and the rest is like fried. So then when you get your coconut cocktail, that's where you run it through, where the problem is. The reorders have been phenomenal. Like I said, more than we expected. We knew we were onto something. Dr. Joe created phenomenal products with a great position, but the reorders have been absolutely wild. The salons have been going crazy. The press has been unbelievable. I mean, I pulled out our 36 award sheet, and this is actually how it looks. But on the back, what we've done for you is put the cocktails. And this, again, is so compelling for a hairdresser to read. Sally Hershberger, the first quote up there. I mean, I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with Sally Hershberger. She is a tough cookie. So for her to actually write something like, she's like, Color Wow cocktails are my go-to products for color-treated hair. It's crazy that we haven't had something like this until now. Coloring your hair always affects the texture. Then Refinery 29, then Vogue. So that immediately, when you walk into a salon, is very compelling just to show. First of all, you've got 36 beauty awards, and then you've obviously got this on the back. So I personally think this is key.
Okay, this is Rich Rose here, and I have a special guest with me today. This is Michael Long. He is a hairdresser that actually has been using the new Color Wow cocktails, and he is on this call to give his impression of the new product.
What I did here with the cocktails is I went about it a little bit differently. I went into my salon and talked to my other staff member, which was that day my daughter. And we decided to not use styling products for a week. And what I mean by that is that we went in, did our colors, did whatever we needed to do. We went for the condition, the shampoo, condition, and then at that point in time when we got them back to the chair, we decided not to use any styling products, only the cocktails on the hair, and observe what they did so that there was nothing that was impeding them from doing their work. And the results would be fabulous. That's the only good word you can say for them. And if we go back to the carb cocktail, which was the first one I tried, and it was the easiest one because I have a lot of fine-haired customers, what it did is it left the hair full, it left it conditioned with no stickiness, and there was no feeling of any product in the hair, but the hair was volumized in a way that I've never felt before. The clients themselves, when they ran their hands through their hair, really liked the feel of the hair. They said it was like virgin hair. The next one we tried is the coconut cocktail. This is the one, if you want somebody to have silky, shiny, smooth hair with a fabulous feel to the hair, which I said before, this is the one you're going to use. We did that on a number of clients, had longer hair, and they were just amazed also that this was that easy to see it the very first time around. We did their hair, and they could feel the difference immediately. That's another good point to every one of these cocktails. The kale is for strength. That was the hard one for us because we didn't know if you can actually feel strength in the hair as a client. So I said to him, well, let's try it anyway. And we went in, we used it on a few people. And they were the people that came back and said, yes, we can feel the way the hair reacts to it. Even as you ran your hands through it and you would pull on it a little bit, they could tell that there was more pliability in the hair. There was more, they felt that the hair wasn't going to snap as easy in their hands, even if it got a little bit tangled. That was one of the things there. Every one of these products, though, does it what it says it's going to do, but it also gives you the shine and the feel of no product in the hair. It does not feel like you just put a whole bunch of stuff in the hair and you tried to blow dry it in. The product performs exactly as it says it's going to. And that's an unusual type of thing in our industry, too. You might have one of them perform really well and the other ones don't. Every one of these products, all three cocktails, perform as they are intended to. It's pretty nice to just say, hey, I got a product here that no matter what you use it on, it's going to make whatever what style you have better. The first thing they say is, wow. It will be definitely a part of my salon from now on.